just tell me your name and
Okay.
your position, what kinds of work you do, and how long you've been in the extension.
My name is Randy Russo. I'm at Mississippi State University. I'm a extension/research professor there, basically dealing primarily in hardwood as a hardwood specialist, but I also work in pine regeneration and plantation programs, as well as in biomass, bioenergy systems.
Okay. So, since you're the research and extension, how have you been able to balance that position, and how has that changed over the years in terms of?
Well, coming here from a research organization, I've only been at Mississippi State for about 11 years, and coming from an industrial background of research only, never really dealt with landowners specifically. And so that was a little bit new to me coming into Mississippi State. But the research end of it was very, very simple, and I felt like for me to actually have enough money availability to do extension programs, I could actually apply that overhead expenses that I would gain back into my extension programs, which allow me to travel and do the type of extension programs that I felt that was necessary for the organization to move ahead in hardwood activity.
And what, so I'm gonna ask you that a little bit. What kind of grants have you applied for that have helped you fund some of your work?
There's been a number of grants that we've gone. We've gone for NEFA grants, we've gone for AFRI grants, we've gone for Sun Grant material, U.S. Forest Service material. We've done some with National Wildlife and Fisheries grants. So those are the main type of grants that I sought after, and all of those, especially AFRI and the NEFA grants, which have a big component of extension built into them automatically. So I was actually wearing two hats in the same type of program. So you would do your research, but you also had to coordinate the extension portion of it as well. And so it's a neat type of program and neat grants to get into.
Cool. What kind of advice would you give your or would you give yourself when you started, or was there anything you would do differently, or did someone give you some advice?
Well, when someone is going to take my place here fairly shortly, probably in the next year or so, but you know, to really go after those grants that have the extension component to it, and in a matter of field that you really want to, you like and love, and you can dwell into it. And I think that's what I did. I went into the aspects which I really, really liked. And so it led, to something I did. And I guess the biggest, not challenge, the biggest thing that helped me along was getting more involved with landowners specifically. And then I also got involved with youth programming. And then so being an older person now at Mississippi State, of course, having grandkids, working with the youth is really, really something I really like a lot.
Let's see. Oh, I just had a question. My brain's starting to stop and work. Let's see. What kind of audiences have you worked with, or like what would you working with hardwood landowners, what types of landowners, or what's the variability within the landowners?
Well, there's two different types of audience. One, you're going to be the professionals, that you have within your field, in forestry is our field. And so you have to deal with them a little bit differently than you deal with a private landowner. A private landowner, you have to approach them as very basic, very down to earth in order for them to understand. It's very difficult when you have a sort of a hybrid type of program, or class rather, where you have both professionals and landowners, and you tend to sort of omit one. Sometimes you talk over the head of the landowner, sometimes you talk too basic, and your professionals want to go to sleep on you. So I think what I've learned, if you can, at all possible, possibilities, is to isolate those two, and so that you can be at even keel with the landowners and understanding the basics of it, and a better amount of information that you can give the professionals at a higher level as well. But sometimes you just can't avoid it, and you have to do it the best you can, knowing that you're going to, be someone. You try to put your, audience somewhere in the middle of it, and try to talk to them equally, when you're doing your programs.
What advice would you give to your successor about how to work with the extension agents? Now I know Mississippi has a different model, but if I'm assuming that specialists are still supposed to support the agents. So.
Well, Mississippi's model is pretty good, I think, for us, because we have such a large forestry model and wildlife model that we integrate really well. When we have programs, we kind of cover the entire basis. We both have forestry as well as wildlife people coming in and talking at the same time about it. So we cover both areas of that. So that's a pretty easy one. But when you venture outside, and this is what I like to do, is when I venture outside of my norm, and I know of other people that are much better experts in the field, then I seek after those people. And I usually are able to get those people in. It may cost me a little bit of money, but that's what I want to use my money for. If I have extra money from any grants or anything like that, I'm actually going to use that for extension and get the very best people I can to get the very best information to the people of the landowners and the consultants as well in Mississippi. A case in point was last year we did our first upland hardwood program that we've ever done. We've always done bottomland hardwood, but never have done any upland hardwood program. I really don't have a good sense for upland hardwoods. I know something about it, but I don't know to the extent of other experts. So we brought in 3 experts, one from University of Tennessee, one from the U.S. Forest Service, and one from the University of Arkansas. They did an excellent job in actually helping me learn more about the uplands, as well as the consultants and the landowners that were there.
Cool. Do you have any stories that stand out for you in terms of experiences where you learned something, or where something went poorly and you learned something that way, or something where it just went really well, like any particular stories or moments or something like that?
Well, I think the very last one is the Mississippi Landowner Cooperative that I tried to put, and I have put together for letting landowners understand more about the genetics of pine plantations and what we can actually do to increase their revenue source out there. And really looking at trying to change their strategy of how they manage their plantation in the future. So when I first developed it, the idea was that I would get the seeds from a seedling company, the seedlings rather, and I would actually have the area of a landowner would say, yes, I can plant 2 acres here. Here's your 2 acres. And then we sat down and said, well, I need for you to have the ground site prep, because this is going to be your land, and a demonstration plot for you for other forest landowners that nearby that will have field days in with it. And when it first started was that the landowners did not properly site prep the ground, and so I'm there with all my research associates and graduate students for almost a week and doing site prep by hand, and so quickly learned that we have to actually set a list of ground rules available to the landowner. This is what you have to cover, and this is what I'm covering for you. Remember that the trees are going to be yours. They're not going to be ours at Mississippi State. They belong to you. You can do what you want with them. All we are looking for is just annual measurements off of them and getting growth and yield data off them so that we can better predict what's going on in the stands and provide other landowners with that information as well. So,
is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think, I would say coming out of the industry and coming into extension, I don't think I had a very good feel for what all extension actually entailed. Now that being at it for 11 years, I can say the extension folks that I know around the nation are extremely smart people. They are very, very dedicated individuals, more so than most people I know in other areas. And so I learned how to really respect what's going on with extension groups in all parts of the U.S.
And I guess so it brings me another question, but coming from industry where you were using science in a different way, how was it to be faced with things like trying to assess your audience, evaluate your audience, and report some of these numbers and things that are kind of
I'll have to be honest, I'm not a big proponent of all the evaluations. I sometimes think that our surveys or our evaluations are too fast, in terms of they don't really represent some of the numbers that they should represent. You hand them out to the audience and you may get maybe 15 if you have 50 people there. 15 back, all the rest of them are rushing to go home, Now, when you have short courses that are longer term, those are your better evaluations. But if you have workshops that are very short or presentations that are very short, it's difficult to get a really good handle on what's happening out there. But the short courses are much better, so the evaluations are really up to par in that case, And I would rely on the short course evaluations more than anything else to tell you how we're performing.
Anything else to add?
No, that's about it.
Okay, cool.